we work together, we can make sure that we're ensuring legislation is meeting the needs of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children, youth, and families.
Questions and comments? The Honourable for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my honourable colleague from Nunavut, and having a chance to speak to C29. It's a bit of an explanation and background and a bit of mea culpa, because when C29 came forward, I recognized it, of course, as being in response to one of the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, specifically found in paragraphs 53 and 54 and 55. And I compared C29 at first reading to the language in the TRC report and found it quite lacking. It was quite thin. So I made amendments. I was fortunate. I mean, as any member here knows, when you go into committee and you're not a member of the committee and trying to make amendments, it's very difficult. But I took the language from the TRC call to action that was missing and brought forward an amendment which got widespread support to add in all the words that were in paragraphs 53, 54, and 55 of the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and did so, and those amendments of mine were accepted. The Green Party amendments were accepted, and then I came to find from Indigenous peoples in my community of Saanich Gulf Islands, from First Nations, that it seemed to them that I'd participated in approving a bill that hadn't been properly consulted with Indigenous peoples before first reading. So it's a bit of I'm grateful to the Senate for the additional amendments as outlined by my friend, Honourable Member for Nunavut. It's very important.
I have to allow the Honourable Member to answer. The Honourable Member has just taken a minute and a half to ask her question, and so I do have to, I'll allow her to wrap up very, very quickly.
Forgive me. Thank you, Honourable Member for Nunavut.
The Honourable Member for Nunavut.
I do remember when you came to our committee, and I thank you for coming to our committee that time.
Address all questions and comments through the chair and not directly to the members.
I do remember, I do recall the member from Saanich Gulf Islands, sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing her writing, came to Indigenous and Northern Affairs Committee to come and help make those amendments. I've learned as well in this whole process that this whole colonial process of first reading, second reading, third reading, sending bills to committee is all a very, it's still, even though it's 150 years old, it's still a very foreign process for Indigenous peoples. When we call on witnesses to speak to us, to share their testimony, doing it with 5 minutes as a first point and then another 2.5 minutes later is not a form of consultation for Indigenous people. So even those processes are flawed, and I think that's why free, prior, and informed consent is so important, because the duty to consult as a standard is too late, and we need to make sure that we're holding governments to account and asking them to please exercise free, prior, and informed consent for Indigenous people, so that they do feel engaged in ensuring that legislation that does come to them is something that they recognize and not as a foreign instrument that is yet another legislation that they have no idea about.
Alors, conformément à l'article 38
Pursuant to standing